It's another lovely Saturday morning. Welcome on board the show, Politics Today, on independent television and radio on the ITV network. Let's get started by looking at some of the trending stories we are following at this time. Barely a week ago, President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made a bold political move by sending list of ministerial nominees to the Senate for approval, thus setting the stage for a heated debate and intense scrutiny. The unveiling of the nominees sparked a wave of reactions across the country as many Nigerians closely monitor the unfolding drama surrounding the screening process. The list of nominees comprised a mix of familiar faces and surprise inclusions. Among them are well-known members of the main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, signaling Tinubu's intention to foster unity and inclusivity in his administration. However, the list also featured several figures who have previously been entangled in political and legal controversies, fueling debates about the criteria used in the selection process. The drama, controversies, inconsistencies, laughter, and tears. Meanwhile, the screening process carried out by the Senate was not without its fair share of drama, laughter, and tears as the nominees faced questions and scrutiny from the senators. Deep emotional moments also unfolded during the proceedings, revealing the human side of the nominees. Ms. Hannatu Musawa, the nominee from Katsina State, broke down in tears while introducing herself and summarizing her resume. The senators consoled her and ruled that she should bow and step out of the Senate chamber. Was that a strategy to avoid interrogations by the senators? We can't tell. This display of emotion added a touch of vulnerability to the otherwise formal proceedings. Amidst the emotional moments, controversies emerged surrounding certain nominees. Senator Sani Danladi, a ministerial nominee from Taraba State, was previously barred by the Supreme Court in 2019 and also gazetted by the Taraba State government from contesting or holding a political office for 10 years due to forgery and perjury. The big question here is the ministerial screening a mere charade or genuine process? We also saw a nominee from Kano State just on the verge of being screened. She was replaced by another nominee. We're talking about Dr. Miriam Shettima, popularly called Miriam Shetty. We heard that she was replaced by her own classmate in secondary school and the university, Dr. Maria Mahmoud. Well, these are some of the unfolding drama. Senior Advocate of Nigeria, SAN, and immediate past Minister of State for Labor and Productivity, Festus Keyamo from Delta State, has been announced as a ministerial nominee of President Bola Tinubu. Keyamo was announced during the ongoing ministerial screening on the floor of the Senate by the majority leader, Senator Okpeyemi Bamidele, on Friday. Meanwhile, President Bola Tinubu has removed Dr. Miriam Shetty from Kano State as a ministerial nominee that was paid to be screened yesterday. Okay, let's look at, let's fast forward to other trending stories and the political scene we'd like to share with you before we go into the nitty-gritty of today's program. Look at other trending stories that we'd like to quickly share with you before we go into the nitty-gritty. It's no longer news that the political landscape in Edo State is assuming an unusual dimension as the Deputy Governor of the state, Right Honorable Comrade Philip Shaibu, has approached the Abuja Division of the Federal High Court to stop a purported plan to impeach him and also stop security agencies and agents of the governor from harassing him. Right Honorable Comrade Philip Shaibu, who is the plaintiff and applicant, and the Inspector General of Police, State Security Service, the Governor of Edo State, the Speaker, Edo State House of Assembly, and the Chief Judge of Edo State, who were defendants and respondents. Shaibu wants the court, through an interlocutory injunction, to restrain the governor, who is the third defendant, respondent, or his agents or persons acting for and on his behalf from harassing, intimidating, embarrassing, and preventing the plaintiff applicant in carrying out the functions of his office as Deputy Governor of the state, including attending State Executive Council meetings, functions, and other duties pertaining to his office. Next week, Saturday, on the program Politics Today, We will be focusing on this issue, so you look out for that conversation. We'll be having a crack team of panelists to dissect that issue. Okay, in today's program, our focus will be on federal government policies and how it's impacting the populace and how the reactions are going. Let me quickly welcome our panelists joining us here in the studio and via Zoom. From my extreme left, Reverend David Ogolo is Executive Director, African Network for Environment and Economic Justice. Thank you for joining us, Reverend Ogolo. Thank you very much. We also have with us here Comrade Roy Oribabo, a public affairs analyst and politician. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you for having me.
We have Barrister Gentleman Amego, a grassroots politician, public affairs commentator. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you, Duke, for having me.
And joining us from the UK, I'd like to thank very specially Honorable Pius Lile. Thank you for your time with us on the show this beautiful Saturday morning. Honorable Lile, thank you for joining us on the program.
Yeah, good morning, Mr. Koson. Good morning, or good morning, viewers.
Okay, we also have joining us via Zoom a former federal commissioner in the Public Complaints Commission, a former House of Representative candidate. I'd like to thank you very especially, Barrister Oladele Balokun, for creating the time to be part of the program. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me. Thank you very much.
Okay, let me begin the conversation from the studio here. Reverend David Ogolo, the most important thing in a government and in governance is not about the policies, it's about how these policies affect the lives of the ordinary man on the street. What is this government not doing right in terms of policies implementation, as it were? Because we are seeing the reactions. Earlier this week, specifically on Wednesday, we saw protests organized by labor movement across the country, and some issues have come forth along those lines. But it doesn't take away the fact that these protests were orchestrated as an answer or a response to government policies which the people are not feeling at all.
Thank you, Mr. Duke, for inviting me. Just to say that when you say government, we have, we practice federal system of government. We have the federal government, we have the state government, we have the local government. And you have 36 states. And when you looked around, we're talking now, if you go down your question, you're referring to the federal government.
Absolutely.
Now, what you have seen in the last few months, say last few days, you will agree with me that it traditionally has always been like that. From time when government decided to run with neoliberal policy. What I mean by neoliberal policy is policies that have to do with privatization, the policy that have to do with that government have nothing to do in business, and that government business to create an enabling environment. I don't know where that description is the source of our problem today in Nigeria. The role of the state is the real problem. Private sector cannot deliver. They don't have capacity to deliver what the state can deliver. As a growing up child in Igobazua, I used to see government officials that are working in Ministry of Works, clearing the rules, maintaining the rules, maintaining everywhere, keeping the rules in a good order. It was government that was doing all this then, and government was delivering. When I was a growing-up child, there was a ROEB, Rural Electrification Board. It was government. There was also Water Board. It was government. I grew up to see the impact and feel what government, and that's the interpretation. But suddenly, Nigeria somehow cropped into the issue of the state has no role. So, and since they withdrew the state and allowed the private sector to play the role of the state, you have seen where we have found ourselves.
That's the core of the issue.
Yes, that's the root of the problem.
Okay, let me pause you there. Yes. Roy, can you lap up on that and give us your perspectives on where we are today in terms of policies as it relates to the functionality of governance and impacting the people?
Of course, if I'm to build on what the Reverend is disposition, it's very clear. You cannot even say as of today, Nigeria government have policy. As far as I'm concerned, they don't have policy because they are not even there for you. We have not seen, government is not just there. in terms of policy formulation, policy implementation, they are not there. Therefore, it's going to be hard for you to want to really assess our government in this part of the world. They deliberately ran away from their responsibilities, as I have just said. They deliberately. As I said, when I was growing up in Igwebe, in Igwebe, I remember Uzebu would go on the tap there. It was working for all of us. As far back, early 80s, when we were in Igwebe, growing up as a young boy, these things were working for us, and all of us was enjoying it. All of a sudden, government just decided not to be there again. And that is where we find ourselves. You look at what you are talking about strike, you are talking what are the issues, because government deliberately abandoned their responsibility. After the strike, the president addressed this country. He did not talk about our refinery. He did not talk, deliberately he did not talk. The reason is that the government can no longer take that responsibility. The other statement you were hearing from the government is afterthought. Because we were not reacting. How do you address a country and you are telling us that this is what you are doing for us, and you are not looking at the issue of that? What is the refinery? What gave us this issue we are facing is because the refineries have not been working. We are expecting to be very proactive in this regard, very pragmatic. That he was not able. Only for him to just wake up and told us that he has saved over $1 trillion. And I begin to ask myself, how do you save that $1 trillion? Is it in anticipation? Is it like, I put myself, is this like Roy who's supposed to go to a salon to go and shave? Because he did not shave, you say, I've saved 1,000 naira supposed to use to shave. Is that the policy? Because I am here to even be able to understand the position of this government.
Okay.
When the government was in a hurry to remove subsidy. And that was a fundamental error. And that fundamental error, we will not be able to get out of it. You can see what is happening. In all ramifications, in all sectors in Nigeria now, they are all going down. Gradually, they are collapsing because of that statement. I was opportune and privileged. I read the speech from the president. There was no issue of subsidy was not discussed there. I don't know where the president reported that subsidy is going to collapse all the whole system. Okay. And now the government is not even bothered. They deliberately, they are running away from their responsibility. Instead of them to be there. The definition of government have since been getting in this country.
All right, let me push you there, Roy. Brasta Mego. Is this a fallout of incapacity on the part of the present government, or we're just still witnessing a budding stage of the policies of government? That's probably the reason why we're not seeing much of the impact that it's supposed to be making.
Yeah, thank you. I think, arising from your question, I think that it's purely the incapacity of the government. The government has failed for so many years, right from Babangida's tenure. Babangida destroyed this country. He is a man who institutionalized corruption in this country. And the country, you were very young. This country can't forgive him for all that. Look at the oil that is creating problem in this country. It was Babangida who started saying, oh, my girlfriend, I give you oil well. Oh, my dear brother, I give you. If the government had capacity, you didn't need to be dashing out our oil well to individuals. A lot of them today are saying, oh, we have so much money, we don't know what to do with the money. If you have the capacity, you will go into the exploration yourself and deliver yourself. NNPC is just there. It's not doing anything, moving from one table to the other. They are the one importing oil. Importing from who? Where is the letter of credit you have opened? In favor of which company? They don't know anything. Like Oribabo said, you just came and said, oil subsidy is removed. I was in this program some time ago, and one professor said, yeah, I didn't know. When you get to a table as a new person, you study the situation before you make statement. So where we are now, Babangida plunged us into it. And so when subsequent governments were coming in, they were just towing the line of Babangida. It's very painful. I don't know where we shall get out of it. Because why not? I want somebody to say, all the oil well owners are hereby stopped. No more oil well to individuals. That's how corruption came. That's how ministers, governors, they come to look for money. They don't come to give administration that will satisfy the governors, that will satisfy the people of this country. Okay. They are coming how much they can make in their period. I mean, it's all right. So
if we're still going back to the days of the military era, a lot of water has passed under the bridge. We've had several governments, several administrations, several policies. Couldn't we have changed the course of the country with those successive governments? Would it be, right to still blame those who had the opportunity to be in government back in the day?
Here we are, sir. Here we are again now. Here we are for our renewed hope. Who are we employing as ministers? Who are we appointing as ministers. They are the same group of people.
Okay.
If you like, call them dictatorial group, not an individual. You call them dictatorial group, you are appointing, it's my party, you are appointing former governors who could not deliver in their states. You are appointing somebody who will wake up by 11 o'clock and start drinking. At a time in this state, Obamedia banned people not to drink from 12 until 12 o'clock. If you were caught drinking before 12 o'clock, you were arrested.
Okay.
But now people just come. These are the people who are ministers.
Yes.
And there are some others who are speaking from both sides of the mouth.
Yeah.
They have not been nominated as ministers. So what do you want to get? And in any case, you are putting 47, 48 ministers. The Constitution doesn't even allow you to talk of a minister of state. If you want to solve an unemployment problem, come to the grassroots to solve an unemployment problem.
Okay.
Not with the appointment of ministers.
All right.
They are so too much.
All right, let me come to our panelists joining us via Zoom. Barrister Oladele Bankole Balogun is the Federal Commissioner, Public Complaints Commission. Quickly share with us on the expectations on the part of the ministerial nominees. What difference do you think they can make against the undercurrents of, well, these are known faces. We've seen them before. We know what they're capable of doing. We've seen what they've been able to do. Is there anything different you expect from these people?
Well, yeah. First and foremost, let me once again thank you for having me on this your esteemed program. I think one of the first things that we need to understand is that we face a major crisis in Nigeria as we speak today. The economic situation in Nigeria is akin to that of that needs, a call for a state of emergency. That's number one point. And when you begin to look at the length and breadth of the ministers that have been nominated, I think there's a little bit of hope, especially when you look at the core competencies of some of these people, and also the broad base of inclusion in what is going to be the Federal Executive Council. I particularly mean pulling people with different competencies from different parties to come together and deal with what I think is a very, very critical situation in Nigeria right now.
Okay, thank you, Barrister Bankola. I'll come back to you in a moment. Pastor Lile, this is a very, very critical situation that we're in the country. If we look at what is going on, just yesterday I heard that one of the multinational companies, finally folded up its operations in Nigeria. I think that's GlaxoSmithKline or so. And then many of the multinational companies are running into losses in the billions. MTN, Nestle PLC, Dangote Refinery, and all of that. And you would want to expect that, with some of the promises made by the present government, the present administration, these things shouldn't be happening. We should actually see government living up to the expectations of renewed hope. But it looks like it's a case of renewed hopelessness within the ambit of the country.
Of course, this government is just 2 months old. It will be a disservice to this government to start criticizing and to start associating it with failings. A policy has just been put in place. The removal of fuel subsidy has been an ongoing issue. Over the last 20 years, we've been debating whether to remove fuel subsidy or not. Now, a courageous government have come in and they have removed it. The issue of removal of fuel subsidy should not be an issue. It's been an ongoing issue at the moment. So for me, the government is, we must give every policy time to see the effects. There is no policy that you will make today that will bring the dividend, immediate dividend. It doesn't work that way. Yeah. We must give every policy time for it to come into fruition, as well as to bear its fruits. I very much believe that the removal of fuel subsidy is a good one, and it will take time for it to settle in.
All we need to do now is to begin to adopt survival strategy. All of us need to be part of this decision, and we need to also, as a matter of fact, adjust in our own daily livelihood. Having said that, I want to also say very clearly, there is no place in the world where government does everything. Government will provide water. Government will provide everything. There is no place in the world. Private people must come in. It is the private people that drives the economy, not the government. Not the government. It's everywhere in the world. The only problem we have in Nigeria is weak institutional framework and weak regulatory framework. Weak institutions, weak regulatory framework. The institutions that regulate are very weak and they are corrupt. That is why we're having problem in Nigeria. Where private will come in, the agencies that have been set up by government to regulate the activities of the private industry or private organization, they are not doing their job. They go there and they collect bribe and they walk away. They see things that are not working. They will not put it right. You see, so these are some of the issues that we are having. I run a private organization in the United Kingdom. We are heavily regulated and monitored. Reports are written about our organization in public. If you want to know anything about my organization, the way I am performing, the way I am, the activities of the organization, you go to the website and everything is published. Organization is regularly monitored and a report written every year so that the public will be able to assess the performance of that organization. There should be transparency, there should be accountability.
Okay.
So that is where we are weak. You go to private schools in Nigeria, you ask the inspectors, the the ministry inspectors to go there and inspect the schools. They go there and collect bribe and go back home. And you are blaming government for that. The issue we have is just more than government. For me, it would be wrong for us to start blaming our president Bola Ahmed Tinubu's policy.
Okay. Yes. All right. All right. Let me pause you there, Pastor Lila. I'll come back to you. I'll come back to you in a moment, Pastor Lila. I'll come back to you in a moment. Barrister Bankole Balogun, what's your take on what needs to be done to rejig the system? Because we are here right now. Prices are at the highest level, and it's most likely going to rise further, considering the circumstances and situation that we are in right now. Yes.
Yes, I think first and foremost, go back to what I said initially about a state of emergency. A state of emergency needs to be declared on our economy and the critical sectors of our economy. That's number one.
Okay.
Number two, in so doing, just like my brother said from the UK, the harsh decisions will have to be made. They are going to be harsh. Everybody does it. Businesses do it. Individuals do it. So those harsh decisions will have to be made. I also agree with him to a large extent that you can't begin, to pigeonhole this present administration that is just, 2-3 months into a 48-month tenure in the first instance, not talking of a second one.
Okay.
So to answer your question directly, what needs to be done? I think that we need to have a holistic, wholesale reorganization of our economy, of our society, politics, and so on and so forth.
Okay.
We need to begin to, sort of look at different ways of taxing our people. We need to look at different ways of encouraging servicing. We need to look at different ways of improving trade, encouraging trade. We need to have a wholesale reconstruction of Nigeria.
Okay, I'll come back to you in a moment, Barrister Bankole. Reverend Ogolo, we're here right now, and you mentioned about some of the neoliberal policies from the international institutions, the World Bank, the IMF, and the rest of them, which we are adopting wholesale. And that's where this whole concept of government has no business in business. We've got to let the private sector, a sort of capitalist mentality and all of that.
Yes.
How do we get out of the woods? Because we are here right now. The economy is getting I mean, is getting worse, so to speak. I just read that some of the multinationals that have really incurred some huge losses in recent time once finally, wound up its operations in Nigeria. And I know that in years past, we've always had this conversation around the fact that some of the multinationals relocated from Nigeria to places like Ghana. That's still ongoing. I'd like to get your take along those lines.
And that's part of the flat global world. Capital move to where they will make maximum profit.
Okay.
Because ultimately, at the end of the day, they want to report back to their shareholders that they are making profit. And so that's how capital moves around the world. They look for places where there's less risk. And if there's risk, they want to make heavy profit. And that's what has happened to the oil and gas company, like Shell and Chevron and all those. They make huge profit. And even they make more profit because what Alele mentioned a while ago, the weak regulatory system. So they take an advantage of it and then compromise government institution, and then they are able to do deals around. But first, in my intro, I said it earlier on, I just give this illustration. If you have a malaria, everybody's familiar with malaria sickness, you will lose appetite. You will be drained. And if you want to treat malaria, how do you go? You're either diagnosed, but then when we're in the village, people normally know how they get herbs to treat it somehow. But somehow, if you don't take time, you lost your life. And then the next thing it says, winch that killed you. But now that we have grown up, we have come to understand that winch doesn't really kill like that. That when you go to the hospital, what will the doctor do? He say, first, let me diagnose you. Let me know what the problem is. And then he comes to diagnosis. He say, either you have 1+ or 2+. Now, if you are treating malaria, because sometimes you get a blister lips, you go and put castle in those lips, will it go?
No.
Because what is causing the malaria is inside. Except you deal with, and if you deal with the symptom, because the symptom of malaria is that you lose appetite. You have a blister,
the symptoms, yeah,
the symptom.
Yes.
So if you deal with the symptom, will you solve the problem of the malaria? You will not. So that's what President Tinubu is doing now. He's not tackling the problem. It's not tackling the problem. And I started in earlier on, and I said it very clearly, the role of the state. We need to interrogate it. This whole idea that the state have no role in business is wrong. Akwa Ibom have Igbo Air. Igbo Air is one of the successful airline today in Nigeria. Their transport is the most successful one. EPA made a mention of Ogbemudia. Benden Line was the most successful transport in Nigeria. The Observer was the most successful state paper in Nigeria. It was state that played it. Then I want to take you internationally. China today, they have been able to wipe away 700 million poor people. They have moved above poverty. India, the same thing. In these two states I mentioned, the state is playing a major role. Then in America, this internet you are talking about today and all that, it was the US government that started the investment.
Exactly.
In France, the same thing, the state are playing a major role. In UK, the state is playing, where Alele is staying there, the state is playing a major role. But here we come, I don't know where they read the textbook from, that they said the state have no business with them, and that it is the private sector that are politicians, quote me, that they will be the one now to move development forward. That's the problem. Then moving forward, they adopted a new liberal policy, adopting World Bank and IMF. That is economic paradigm that lay emphasis that you must open your market, you must take
demand and supply forces to play.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And this is where we have found
Okay,
ourselves.
let me pause you there. Roy, quickly share with us, because the problem is here and is humongous. We don't know how we're going to come out of it. But I've heard people say, look, this is just like 2 months into the present administration. We need to give government time to settle down for the policies to mature. We had these conversations coming up under the previous administration of President Muhammadu Buhari. Or the criticisms are coming too early. We need to give the government. That's how we stayed for 8 years. And here we are today. Take it off from
Of course, those who are saying the government is just
But it's not magic.
the government is just new. These are persons in anticipation who are thinking and believing that they will benefit from the system. You know, in this part of the world, the more you sing the hallelujah, the more they recognize you.
That's right.
Very just how you see persons who are in the ministerial, those are those who are singing the hallelujah.
Exactly.
And that is why an average Nigerian will quickly want to run into that. How can you say 2 months is not enough to judge the government? The mistake, this government, under Buhari, the mistake have cost Nigeria. We will not be able to come back in another 50 years. Whether you like it or not. The government of today now does not have what it takes to even correct the error. All of it was a unanimous decision taken by Nigeria. We believe and hope that this subsidy at the time, let it go. That a process was already there for we to embrace the whole system. A man just woke up one morning because he's not the president of Nigeria. He said subsidies without considering the impact.
But let me say something to you, Roy. I'm sorry. This subsidy that is removed, it is not Tinubu. They didn't budget for it. It was Buhari time they took this
Why did
decision.
he announce it?
No, that is the point I'm telling
Exactly.
you. We are aware that the president of Buhari, the Buhari government said by June ending, there will not be more subsidy.
Exactly.
And all of us were making arrangement towards that direction.
And
What
then
happened in May 29?
In May
Why was
29?
the president in the
Announcement was made.
Now, I was telling some persons yesterday, I said, what President Tinubu and Sosiden is doing, it's like a man you want to renovate your father's house, and your father is an old man. Really season, and you are serious coming, and your father is and you cut some capital and say, come and remove the roof. In the process of removing the roof, you did not even tell your neighbor that I want to remove my roof. In the process of removing the roof, it's raining. It's now you are rushing to your neighbor house. I want to put my father. That is what President Tinubu are able to succeed in doing. And that is what we are saying. People cannot continue to tell us that this government is just 2 months. This government, that is the reason why we allow Buhari government. We gave it this opportunity. And now what are they doing? The APC government, now they are not blaming APC. I listened to the advice, Nuhu Ribadu. He said we inherited a very bad situation. And I saw you to blame. It took Buhari 8 years to blame a PDP government. Now they are not blaming themselves. You cannot give what you don't have. This government, they don't have what it takes to fix Nigeria.
Okay, let me pause it there. Barrister Amego, I know that you're very objective in your disposition when it comes to issues like this. Is it too early for us to have this conversation of holding government accountable with the policy they brought forth?
Well, we have been told that this is a renewed hope. And when you have a renewed hope, you expect new things to come about. So that's what we have been expecting. In Benin, we say when there's a new Oba, there are new ordinances. I expect Tinubu to say, not just removing and adding 600 naira a liter. You can remove them, by graduality. Because the pains our people are having now is unbearable. If we have to remain like this for another 6 months, you see people just dying in the street. I live with the people myself, and I know what they are suffering. The removal of subsidy goes across the spectrum of the economy. The village man is affected. Whoever is in Nigeria is affected. So we have to go gradually. I'm saying let us remove, say, 25%. After a few months, another 25% until we totally remove this.
Okay.
Yeah, because today we are suffering. For those of you who are lucky to be abroad, we are talking from UK. You don't know what we are going through here. Don't come back quickly. People will submerge you in your office.
Okay. Let me get Barrister Bankole. You were saying something. While Barrister Amego was talking, just quickly establish the point you were making.
Thank you very much. I've been literally dying to get to the conversation.
Yeah, I know.
And if you understand on the one hand how government works, and if you understand on the second hand the precariousness of the situation in Nigeria, yes, then you would know that very, very serious issues that require immediate and serious interventions.
Exactly.
That petrol subsidy.
Absolutely.
That petrol subsidy just had to go. That's number one. It had to go. Nigeria was crumbling. GDP is fast crumbling. Debt service ratio, to GDP, income and so on, was almost wiped at about 99.something%. Nigeria was falling apart at the seams, and some people are feeding fat. So that had to go. We are all going to suffer the pains. The man in the village, the man on the streets, the big man in Ikoyi, everybody is going to have to suffer it, but that suffer is going to be for a short while. There are many other problems. There are many other problems around the economy. There's the unity of the country that has a problem. The security is a problem. You know, so there's so many problems. But when you think and understand that Nigeria is a more or less like a mono economy,
Yes,
that
it
accounts
is.
for
It is.
90%.
Yes.
So we need to deal with that. The subsidy is gone. Free petrol to Niger is gone. Electricity to Niger is gone. So these are things that in time, will begin to bring relief and efforts to Nigeria. I mean, if we have time to talk, I also have a view that, our foreign policy and economic policy must now begin to be Afrocentric, and we need to now begin, to get our Nigerian businesses and businessmen to have serious investments in Africa and repatriate these monies back into Nigeria.
Okay, Mr. Bankole, I just want to take you on a point that we all need to suffer for this period. And someone also mentioned that, I think it was Pastor Lile who talked about having to fight for survival. Many people will not survive that fight. And many people will not be able to go through these realities. Are you not bothered about the fact that in removing fuel subsidy, there is nothing out there for the people to go back to? We continue our conversation on federal government policies and how it's impacting the populace and some of the reactions that are trailing it. We expect to see new ministers come on board and change the narratives. How long it will take, we don't know. But let's get back to our panelists joining us via Zoom, Barrister Bankole Balogun, as well as Honorable Pius Alile joining us from the UK. Balogun, I spoke about the fact that people will not survive or may not be able to survive the fact that they have time to get by with what is happening. Is that not of concern to you? Exactly. Because we're saying that we need to give the government of the day time to mature with the policies. They have a 4-year duration to be able to make an impact and all of that. Let me quickly get your reaction on that.
Yes, I did say that we will struggle for a while, and I am sure that with the right policies and the right people to implement these policies, it would not be too long. Now, struggling and suffering is all part of, structural adjustment and all what have you. Now, the good thing about this situation is that it appears that the government of the day is not, oblivious of the situation, and henceforth, they have started to roll out, palliative measures to make this, a lot more bearable. There's no shortcut, to economic readjustments, and we just have to. And that's one element of it. There are several other elements. I mean, thinking off of the top of my head, one of the areas that we need to look at our population. Our population has gone crazy. Somebody talked about China earlier on, that China pulled out, 700 million people out of poverty. That is absolutely correct. But what did China do? China looked at its population. Because when you think about economy and politics, one of the key things that I learned, doing A-level, economics, over 40 years ago, is that, economics is all about allocation of scarce resources. Resources will always be scarce. Okay. Our population is going crazy. We cannot control it. So, yes, I'm not saying that we must suffer. We are going to suffer. I am going to suffer.
But there should be equity. In the suffering. There should be equity.
I'll come back to it. Okay. All right, Mr. Bankole, let me pause you there. Pastor Lile, you're cool. I mean, you should be cool because you are in the UK with the sufferings before the enjoyment comes. But let's talk about the modus operandi in terms of the palliatives. We heard earlier that the government was going to distribute 5,000 naira to the poorest of the poor household. Somewhere along the line, with the reaction that came with it, government jettisoning that idea from the $800 million World Bank facility. What palliatives are we looking at in remedying this situation?
Nation building very difficult process. It's a process that can be very complex, and it's a collective one. The discussion is centering around just government. We all have individual responsibility to nation building. We have our sacrifices to make. So let us not deceive ourselves. I still maintain that the government is new, and I think it's that we must be patient with the government. It is the responsibility of the citizens to be patient with government. And as individuals can also, individuals and charitable organizations can also come in here to support the poorest of the poor. That is the way nations are built. It is not just waiting for government to give that to everybody. What about the individuals that are well off? What are they doing in that country?
Okay.
What about the charitable organizations in that country, the churches? What are they doing in that country? We are just talking about government palliative. Just as my colleague said just now, it's allocation of scarce resources. It is not possible for government to take care of everybody's needs and meet everybody's needs. It's not possible. We all have a responsibility. It is my own opinion that all of us should step into this situation and assist the government. It would be a disservice to the nation to start criticizing government that is just barely 2 months old. It is wrong. As far as I'm concerned, it is wrong.
Okay. All right, Alile, I will pause you there because we need to open our studio lines and get some contributions from our viewers and listeners. Okay. Just quickly anchor the point.
Yes, I'm telling you now that even successive governments, you cannot begin to blame only this government. What about successive governments in the past?
Okay.
Now let's look at it. I am saying that the issue of palliative is good, but there are collective responsibilities. There are individuals that can step in. There are churches that can step in. There are organizations that can step in. That is how the great economies of the world, when they are going through depression, these are the institutions that they use in their recovery process. That is what is obtainable worldwide.
Okay, I will pause you there now.
And I am saying,
Yes, I'll pause you there. Let me come back to our panelists in the studio. Yes.
We must take our responsibilities seriously. That's what I'm saying.
All right. Remagolo, quickly, in a minute, talk to us about this issue of striking a balance. You're talking about equity backstage. What is the point of view on that aspect?
Well, I'm familiar with the issue of structural adjustment policy, which was introduced in 1986. What was the outcome? It was a failure. The economic model that the government is practicing has failed. It has not delivered democracy results. It has not delivered on development results.
Okay.
And so because it has failed, we have responsibility to interrogate the model. If this issue of let the private sector lead the economy is not working, and countries like China have now adopted a middle line where the state play a role, the private sector play a role. And it's working in China, it's working in India, it's working in Singapore, it's working in other states. Even in the United States, the state plays a role. But come back to Nigeria. You are withdrawing the state entirely from all economic activity. And the model you are adopting is not yielding the result. Structural adjustment program on the basis of the fact that you have to open your market to allow everybody to come in. Just recently, I was flying from Abuja. I read in the preface of the Airpeace magazine. The owner was explaining that Nigerian government have opened their airspace for all other airlines to fly in. But they have not granted him airspace to fly into other African countries. Okay. So what kind of economic exactly? You have to be sensitive. But the problem we have in Nigeria, our economic people who are implementing the policy, they are not sensitive. Now, the ad hoc approach that President Tinubu have adopted will not solve the problem. Okay. So the problem of Nigeria is corruption. Will President Tinubu come up with a strategic policy agenda? Look what he has done. He has appointed an independent investigator to investigate CBN. Now he has sidestepped an institutional framework, which is the EFCC and ICPC. When you don't follow things properly, what happened?
error.
You fail.
Now you have an adult, and he now asked this independent investigator to be reporting to him in his office every week. That is political.
Okay,
we don't solve problem like that.
Let's get some views from our viewers and listeners on radio. Our studio number will come on screen shortly. We'll also be reading you that number so you can call. Hello, caller. Good morning. Tell us your name and where you're calling from. Yes, good morning. Yes, good morning.
My name is John Bosco, calling from Benin.
Yeah, John Bosco, please go ahead.
I want to appreciate the panelists there. They have all spoken well. But the truth and honest part is that people who are in abroad cannot just be there and be telling us whether
That's your office, and they should block his speaker.
We know what they are going through. I think that's not enough. One of the panelists also said that now the power to Nigeria has cut off and it's disconnected. But we in Nigeria are not feeling anything. There is no life. What we expected is that there would have been a change in the power supply in the country, but there is nothing like that. For the past 48 hours, there's no life in Nigeria.
Okay.
Those are things we want. We want Nigeria to work for everybody.
Okay.
That's just it.
All right, thank you. Thank you. The number is 080-7777-0300. That's the studio number. You can dial it right now so you can be part of the discussion. Tell us your name and where you're calling from, and please go straight to the point because we have several others waiting on the line. Good morning, caller. What's your name?
Good morning, sir. My name is...
Yes, go ahead. Yes, go ahead.
I'm calling from Uselu.
From Uselu, go ahead, please.
So, first of all, congratulate we Nigerians. And I believe we are the most tolerant and patient people in the world. When you go to the father, what is happening in Nigeria, no other country can tolerate it. It is true that our sector is not patient. Yes, we did that to Buhari and the other government. But for now, yes, it's just 2 months. But what he said, where is the light? Now, he talked about, he gave us some presidential speech, I think 3 days ago, but they talked about refinery.
Yes.
And now, the president don't know their own strike. Things are not going well. Our even naira to dollar is now even higher than before. So what is now this principle that there is a change or there's going to be something tangible in this government that will give us faith and hope that let us see when you know you want to survive, there's a hope. They say after there's a line after the tunnel. When there's a hope in anything you are doing, you have something, okay, let me just be with them.
Okay.
Is there anything people go, but what are they put it down? We don't need 5,000 naira. Let us start with something so that we can have that endurance. We are being...
All right, we just have a few minutes left. 080-7777-0300 is the studio number. Last call for the program today. Hello, caller. Good morning. What's your name and where are you calling from? Yes, tell us your name and where you're calling from. Okay, go ahead.
Please, my take is the military for period in our minister is not approached now. It's not the middle problem of Nigeria now. We are suffering. We are far away. This has to be done. So help us. These are rehab, these are causing the market.
All right. I agree with you absolutely. As part of our conversation and advocacy on what needs to be done to salvage the situation. Roy, quickly give me your take, your parting words as we call it a wrap.
The issue to me is a direct issue. We are aware that our institutions are very weak. Why we expect President Buhari to be more interested in
President Tinubu, you
mean?
You're bringing Buhari back.
Sorry for that, President Tinubu. It must be brought down on how to strengthen our institution.
Okay.
Like what is going on? A critical example, like the example Reverend just cited now, is here to destroy our institution if it is not properly guided.
Okay.
A situation where you remove responsibility from a body that is actually defined by law, you are giving it to some certain individual. You are not helping us. Okay. And that's the reason why I'm telling Alile now that he's talking about individuals must play their role. The reason why we are here today is we are playing our part.
All right, Pastor Mego. Yes, final word.
Exactly. Yes.
Alile is just talking of individuals coming to assist the government. You don't give what you don't have.
Okay.
You just people wearing about that. You think that there's so much money like you have, Alile. You know, what do you have that you're going to give? You don't have. Yes. And finally, you know, he also said there are agencies set up in UK to monitor companies.
Yes.
Again, if the center cannot, and he blamed too, and let blame that those companies in Nigeria, they are corrupt. Why are they corrupt?
Exactly.
Institutions are weak.
Why are they
weak
corrupt?
institutions.
Because the
Exactly.
center are weak.
Yeah.
So when the center cannot hold,
Will the individual play that role?
when the center can hold,
Things will fall apart.
okay.
Okay, let's get back to our panelists joining us via Zoom. What's your final take, Honorable Pius Alile?
Yeah, they should give this government some time to settle it.
We will do that.
That is one. Individuals and other charitable organizations should also take responsibility. Nation building is a collective one.
All right, thank you. Thank you. Barrister Bankole, let me get a final word from Barrister Bankole, yes.
Socialism. Don't advocate socialism.
All right.
We are running a liberal economy.
All right.
That is based on capitalism.
All right, thank you.
Socialism.
Thank you. Barrister Bankole, final word from you.
Yeah, for me, President Ahmed Bola Tinubu is the right person in Nigeria.
Are you still campaigning?
Don't let's trivialize this. To resolve a very serious issue with our institutions, our economy, and our society. It calls for a state of emergency. It calls for very, very clear social
it's good to also
intervention.
hear this
He's doing very well. He's doing very well.
It makes it more.
To take us out of this mess. But let me just take your mind back to 1999 and the issues that the Lagos state government at the time had from 1999 to 2007 under the presidency of Obasanjo. The novel ways in which Lagos was able to make money, to keep money, and to invest, and to make Lagos a better place. Today's history.
Okay.
I think that can be done for Nigeria.
All right, thank you, gentlemen, for your time. There is no two ways about it that the present government under President Bola Ahmed Tinubu needs to do
I hope they get
things
the appointment.
differently for us to move this country forward. At the moment, things are in bad shape in terms of the economy. People are hungry, people are angry, people are despondent, people are unhappy. People can't even go to work. People can't even fuel their vehicles. Those who have vehicles, they just park it somewhere and take public transport, which is also not even easy. So, government needs to find a way to ameliorate the sufferings of the people. We've heard government saying through their agents or the agencies of government that, salaries will be doubled, salaries will be increased. If we don't increase our production capacity, will that also help? I'm not sure it will help. So it's a huge problem that the government of the day needs to fix. We need to move away from the rhetorics, the sloganeering and what have you. Campaigns are over. The election is gone, at least for now, until maybe the court says otherwise, to face governance head on and change the fortunes of Nigerians. I want to say big thanks to our panelists. Honorable Pius Alile, thank you for joining us. Barrister Bankole, thank you for joining us on the program. And Reverend David Golo, thank you for joining us.
Thank you.
Royal River Boy, it's a pleasure.
Thank you
and
for having me.
erudite Barrister Gentleman Amego, thank you for your time.
Well said. Thank you.
That's our program today on Politics Today on Independent Television and Radio. Big thanks to all our viewers and listeners, especially those that called. Thank you for your commitment to the program. Have a great weekend and keep praying for Nigeria. Bye for now.